right, everybody, welcome back to the Turn 2 podcast with Scott and Troy. We have an awesome guest for you today, Austin Kitchen, who recently debuted with the Miami Marlins. We are so proud of him. He has been one of the most interesting teammates I've ever had, not only for the great beard, but for his lefty approach. His sinker is unbelievable, even watching it from first base and left field. It is one of the most complicated pitches I've seen behind. I haven't had the pleasure of trying to face it and break my bat against it. But essentially, Austin, I want you to walk us through what that debut looked like in Miami.
Oh man, definitely one of the more crazier days that I've been a part of. Just with the deadline being there that day, we drove here to the stadium at 9 a.m. Hopped in the car service, drove all the way to Tampa, and then got there at 1:30, somewhere around there. And the whole day, you don't know if you're going to get sent to the field or not. They kind of had us on standby, so it was kind of crazy just sitting there and you're thinking the whole day, hoping it's the day that you get the pitch. But yeah, 6 o'clock deadline ended. Obviously, a lot of trades last minute, and they called and said, "Hey, get to the park, 6:40 game." So you didn't have too much time to think or be nervous. But yeah, I got there at 6:15ish and just walked in the locker room, threw the uniform on, and right out to the field. But it's definitely a blessing, dream come true. I mean, you know it, you're doing it too. It's like that's the day we all dream of, no matter what it looks like. But it was definitely sweet to be able to get out there and pitch and play and kind of live the dream, and especially to be able to go 2 innings, not just one and done. You know what I mean? So it was a special day. Good day.
And a lot of fans out there aren't going to know this about you. You actually got called up with your former team, the Colorado Rockies, but didn't debut, didn't pitch. I've seen that a lot. Sadly, I've seen that a lot in the Miami Marlins organization. I've had a couple friends that have done that exact thing. Walk us through what that kind of looked like last year with the, or was it last year or this year?
This year,
Okay,
June
I'm sorry.
26th.
Walk us through this year what that looked like.
Oh, we were in Oklahoma City playing there. Had two good outings, I think, that week. And one of those things, I think at midnight, phone rang. Manager Pedro Lopez calls. He says, hey, pack your stuff. You're going to the big leagues. And it's one of those things where I got time to kind of soak it in and be there. But yeah, that first game, it was one of those scenarios where I knew Cal Freeland was on the 60-day IL. And I got called up on a Saturday. He was coming back Sunday. So it's one of those things where a move's going to be made. But being a glass half full guy, you don't really think ever, it's going to be you. But yeah, got hot in the ninth inning, which was kind of crazy. The adrenaline was flowing, and I think we were the first team in MLB history to walk it off on a pitch clock violation. So I actually didn't even get into the game and come in that next day, man. And, Bud Black calls me into the office and, obviously broke the news to me. And it was just obviously disheartening. You spend one or your whole career with one team. You always dream of making it with that team and whatnot. It just goes to show this game how crazy it is and just how your scenario can change in the blink of an eye. So obviously it was disappointing. But then flying back to Albuquerque and, seeing a 305 South Beach number pop up from, Brian Chatton, that was definitely even more rewarding, knowing that I was going somewhere else too. So, yeah, definitely just a crazy day, crazy time.
Yeah, you go from like, oh my God, I might make my major league debut to, oh my God, I'm going back to AAA, to, wait a minute, like I'm claimed, and so that's got to be. You talked about this is good. You see this 305 number, it's good to be wanted, right? And you're
100%.
wanted by an organization that still wants to keep you on the 40-man roster. In that moment, how much did that help the mindset, knowing that okay, I'm going to report to AAA Jacksonville, but I'm still on the 40-man?
It was definitely rewarding and kind of eased my mind a little bit because I'm sure Troy's heard it. When you're in this grind of playing and, you've been through every level, which I believe he has too, is you always hear the thing like, you have good seasons and nothing may come out of it at the pace that you want. Obviously, everyone that plays well wants things to happen very quick. And I always heard the phrase, you're playing for 29 other teams too. And it was one of those things being an indie ball guy, not a huge prospect or a draft pick. You always hear those terms, but it feels so far away. And then to have that moment where another team gets to take a chance at you, and to see all the hard work, the results that you've put up from years past, and to have a team notice that, and take a chance on you and say, hey, we want you, and there's a future for you. That was, out of my whole career, that was probably one of the most rewarding days that I've had.
So you alluded to a couple things, and we'll dive into those a little bit in a few minutes. But you go from indie ball to the Rockies, and you were a pitcher. And I would think for a pitcher, knowing that it's Coors Field, but most of their places in the minor leagues are really difficult to pitch as well. Cal League is supposed to be a hitter's paradise. Obviously, Albuquerque, I think they're the only team in minor league baseball that hasn't thrown a shutout this year, and that's
100%.
because of the ballpark and the elevation and the league. What was your mindset knowing, okay, this is my shot? It's the Rockies, but I know that, Coors Field is obviously a really difficult place to pitch, but even on the climb, it's also going to be difficult to put up numbers, and the ball's going to do different things. How did you navigate all of that?
Oh man, it's so tough, especially having no affiliate ball experience and then walking into an organization where, they're vocal about it. They let you guys know, hey, this is a very tough organization to pitch in. The leagues that we play in, even the Eastern League for Double A, they always told us that league has teeth. It's one of the highest rated leagues as far as prospects, talent, things of that nature. So it can set some fear in. And for me, I'm such a mindset guy and tricking the mind into having belief, where I looked at fear like it kind of stands for two things: either fear everything and run, or face everything and rise. And I feel like the way you look at fear, you can use that to your advantage. So for me, obviously, it was a face everything and rise, where I'm like, okay, it's going to be hard, it's going to be tough, but anything worth having isn't going to come easy. And then for me, playing in those ballparks, it kind of forces you to compete. You have no other choice. If you don't compete, you won't survive. Um, so obviously, all those, non-controllable variables, as far as where we play and how we have to play, that definitely helped me become a better pitcher, embrace failure, and learn to get rid of failure quickly, and have a short memory as a pitcher.
Did you feel that even now that your pitches move differently based on where you were in the Rockies organization?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think from Double A to start the year at Hartford at sea level, I think my sinker was 18 to 22 inches, anywhere in there. Same with the slider. And I remember my first game going to Albuquerque. I think the sinker was like 11 inches, 10 inches, and I was like, oh boy, yeah, this is definitely different. And
Somebody get me to the PCL. Somebody trade for me, please. For the love of God, trade for me.
and on top of that, yeah, I mean, ball flies, so I'm like, you have to live in the zone. The strike zone's smaller, so much is going through your mind. But yeah, I definitely have noticed the difference, and it was something when I got here, in Gwinnett even. That day game, walked a couple guys, and I'm like, man, I think I've walked 8 guys all year at that point, and I'm like, man, just how much everything moves. It's hard to, kind of harness things back in. So it kind of almost was like relearning your starting points and how to pitch as far as at sea level. So just been trying to embrace it. But yeah, the ball definitely moves way different.
So you told me a story, and this is one of my favorite stories, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you today and why we brought you in. So not a lot of people know, but your time at Coastal Carolina, you won a College World Series,
Mm-hmm.
and you had a lot of success at Coastal. You did not jump into pro ball right away.
Mm-mm.
And so I want you, because I like the way you tell it better than the way I tell it, I want you to tell us that story, because this is something that is so interesting. It is so different than any other, baseball story that we can think of, because you took this gap, this break, and then you got back into baseball. So start us out kind of that last year of college, and then go from there up until you get signed by the Rockies.
So I'd say, yeah, 2019, last year at Coastal, started off the year really, really well, at least the first half. 5-0, pitching at a 1.8. I'm like, man, this is great, good season. And then the second half, man, I don't think I could have won a coin flip, let alone getting out. Really struggled. Obviously didn't get drafted. And for me, it was like a time in between the draft and then the next fall when the season was about to start. I had a lot to think about. And for me, I'm sitting there like, man, I'm not happy with the way that, I'm kind of going, or how I'm developing on a personal level, as far as a player. And so for me, it was like, I'm going to head home, take a break, and shoot for the indie ball route possibly down the road. I didn't really know what I was going to do. So moved back to Pittsburgh, got looking for work, got a job making $12 an hour, working at Zabroni's Bakery in Pittsburgh.
Shout out to Brownies.
Yeah, 100%. Shout out to Bronies. But for me, it was like in that time period working. Obviously, I was lifting and doing stuff. I enjoy working out and staying in shape. So I was doing that type of stuff. And man, I was just working from 3 p.m. to anywhere, past midnight into the morning time, and just grinding, and then waking up in the morning, doing the schoolwork and everything else. And one day something hit, you get like a little lunch break type deal. And we were sitting at Zabroni's and, kind of threw something. I think it was an apple maybe or something. There was a nice hard wall outside the place. And man, threw it. and like something just clicked in me, and I was like, man, that felt good. And it kind of reignited the flame in me, and I was like, you know what? I'm already lifting anyway. Might as well try getting back into baseball and training. And next thing you know, I switched jobs to make that a little easier for me, where I went to detailing cars at Roar Cadillac.
Shout out Rory Cadillac.
Shout out Roar Cadillac over on West Liberty Avenue in Pittsburgh, and working from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I would just drive home, and I started that journey of the train again and try to get signed. And luckily, I reached out to an agent that, shockingly in the past didn't go with, and he got me an indie ball contract. And that happened in, summer of 20 in the peak of COVID. Only got to throw 12 innings before it shut down. And then, next, I'm trying to think, that next spring training in 21, got a call from Colorado, signed 2 weeks in. And man, it was just one of the craziest and toughest journeys of my life by far.
And you have, when did you get married? Because you have a wife, correct?
Yes, November 5th, 2022.
Okay, so 22. Oh, okay, so she was not part of this yet.
She was. She actually,
okay, because that's what I want to ask. Because as a wife and girlfriend, we also had the wives and girlfriends on this podcast. They give some good insight, but that's got to be really tough on them as well. How did she take it?
I'll be honest, man. She is an absolute trooper. And I told her, I was like, hey, we're moving from Myrtle Beach back to Pittsburgh. And, she was from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. She knew nothing about Pittsburgh, wasn't a city girl. And I looked at her and I'm like, hey, this could be short term, could be long term. And she was just kind of like, hey, I'm with you. Whatever you want to do or whatever you think's best, I'll do it. So for her, I can't even imagine how much harder it was. Obviously, moving to a whole new city, no friends, no family nearby. Nothing, she was working 2 jobs too to help, pay the rent, support the dream. So man, just one of the biggest blessings, but it was extremely tough on her. But she's a tough girl. She handled it well, and just kept faith in me and just said, hey, I know you can do whatever you put your mind to. And that was honestly my biggest piece of support throughout the whole thing. Having the trust from her and the faith and the belief, you feel that every day you wake up. There's days you don't want to go to work, you don't want to train, you're beat, you're tired going through that process. And man, she might have been tougher than me through it all, so she was a blessing, man.
Yeah, that's one thing I always like to do on this podcast. Scott and I have been married for a little bit. Scott has 2 kids with one on the way. We're so happy for him. But
That's
always got to shout.
Congrats.
Always got to shout out the wives, the girlfriends.
No doubt.
They are so important to this journey, and not a lot of people know that because they all think that there's some of the wives and girlfriends that met their spouses in the big leagues, and sometimes they're a little out of touch.
100%.
But the ones that have been there through the whole ringer, they know. They understand this, and they are the rocks that we all need.
100%.
No matter what level you are in.
I think back even to college, man. I'm trying to think when I snapped my leg in half 2 weeks before my junior year. That was when we first started dating and meeting, and I think the fall of 2017.
She snapped your leg in half?
No, she
Oh,
didn't.
my God. And you married her?
Oh, man. But no, I mean, even through that process, man, I was laid up for 3 months on crutches, couldn't walk. And I'm like, even then, she was, we were just dating at the time, and she was there from that start. So I'm like, man, all good signs from the first day to now that I was like, okay, this might be the one. So, yeah, huge shout out to her, man. She's my rock. Happy belated birthday, by the way, yesterday. Was her birthday?
Nice.
Happy birthday.
So, yeah, beautiful.
All right. I love it.
So Myrtle Beach, Coastal Carolina. We didn't know each other. We were in Myrtle Beach at the same time. I was working for the Pelicans. You were at Coastal. And 2016, you guys, Troy said, you didn't just win a national championship. You played a big role on that team. What was it like to go into Conway? You play for what's always been a really good program, but to push it to a place that had never gone and to go all the way to Omaha as a freshman and win the whole thing.
Oh, man, that was, it was crazy because I go on the recruiting visit, and the stadium at the time, the new one, wasn't even completely built yet.
That's right.
All they had was just the stoning of the actual press box and stuff built. And Coach Gilmore, gave me his vision, which was going to Omaha, winning a World Series, going to Super Regionals, and winning with this park. And that was something I bought into. So to walk into that university and be a freshman and be a guy where you kind of already see how old the team was and the pieces that were in place, it gave me a time to, see the vision, but also say, hey, I have my own vision where I want to play and I want to be a piece for this team. And, the leadership on that team was great, from Anthony Marks, G.K. Young. There were so many guys that were mentors to me. But it was crazy to walk in there, be a piece, but also the vision that Coach Gilmore explained and sold to me happens in the first year, which I'm sure you had probably somewhat of the same pitch, go to Omaha, win, do these things. So to do it in the first year and then, to be an All-American and be a key piece for that team, that was probably one of, the more fun years of my career. Just because you're so young, it's all so new, and it's just to make that crazy run is an underdog. And, to go into LSU, one of the toughest places to play, sweep them, then go to Omaha and face Sean Anderson in Florida and those guys. And to beat those guys, it was just a crazy journey that you just kind of ride the high. But yeah, it was definitely insane.
And I mean, in college baseball, you get a once in a lifetime experience because everybody is working towards the same thing. Where you get to pro ball and it's a little bit more individualized, shall I say, where everybody's kind of out for themselves a little bit more. But in college, every pitch matters.
Every single pitch
matters. Where here it's like, oh, you give up a home run, whatever. All right, let's just go to the next guy, whatever. So,
did you think? So this is your experience as a freshman. They say this with young guys when they get to the show and they win the World Series or they get to the World Series. That's like, this is what it's going to be like. But you guys, I don't think ever went back. Did you think going into 2017, yeah, when we still had, I think Remillard was on that team maybe, or maybe he had just graduated. But you guys still had some guys.
Yeah.
And regardless, did you think we're going to do this every single year? Or how was that going after the national championship?
It was one of those things where we lost, I think 8 draft picks, maybe 2 in the free agency too. So 10 guys kind of left. But Coach Gilmore did a great job, obviously wanting to win now still and ride that, that championship where he went the JUCO route, got a lot of great players. Matt Eardenson, a lot of good guys that came in and helped. So the goal was for us, obviously, to go back, and that was the vision. And, Matt Schilling, who's the head assistant coach there now, he said it best. He was like, we got a taste of Omaha, a taste of winning the World Series, that he was like, now that we tasted it, it makes us even more hungry to go back, seeing what that was like. So that phrase from him was kind of the mindset the whole way. And obviously 2017, we came up way short from expectations. With a lot of roles to fill and things of that nature. But, 2018, so close, responded by hosting a regional. Sadly didn't make it out of that. I was hurt that year too, wasn't even a part of it. But crazy year going through. And then 19, close, where you win your conference tournament, you go to a regional, we come up, I think, a win or two short. Yeah. And you're just like, man, you realize how tough the journey is. Always wanting to get back. You look at some of the teams that get hot at the right time, and it's just, man, it's just incredibly tough. And I'm sure you went through it in college where one team had your number, and it's like, man, teams get hot at the right time, and it's just tough getting through.
The Mormons, BYU.
That was you, BYU.
That was BYU. They were all 25. We were 19, 20. They were really good. They were really good all the time. I didn't 100%. Get it.
Mike Rucker, we just saw him with Lehigh Valley. He was a BYU guy.
Yep, BYU guy. Gorgeous campus. Sorry.
I've heard that. Yes. My apologies, Troy.
No, my apologies.
So Gary Gilmore just retired, and actually the Pelicans retired his number at their ball for Myrtle Beach. I think it was like Tuesday or Wednesday this week in Myrtle Beach. But regardless, an amazing career in college baseball. What was it like to you talked a lot about him so far, his vision for the program, how he prepared you guys. You see him retire. What do you think about when you think of Gary Gilmore now?
Man, that guy changed so many careers on a baseball level and yet a personal level. And I think how he carried himself while I was in the program, it's one of those things where it's contagious. It rubs off on you. And at his age, there was not one moment, I think, in 4 years where you felt like he kind of slowed down. He was so super high energy, held everybody accountable, and he gave, the tough love type of coaching, which for me worked better than the easy kind of going stuff. But to see what he did, because I think he went there in 1994, maybe 1995, somewhere around that time. And to be 6th in the entire country in win percentage since 2001, to get, a $50 million facility, whatever it was, built for that program, and then to bring it from such a low-end program to a high-end one known for a tradition of winning, I think just speaks enough about who he is as a man and as a coach. And then if you look for, I live back there obviously in the off season, and you come back for alumni weekends and stuff like that, the amount of good things that everybody has to say about him, how everybody wants to come back and see Coach Gilmore, I think speaks even more highly of who he is, where people will spend their time and money to come back just to see that man. And then with even retiring, he's been following me the whole way, shooting me good text messages, and just showing support from afar. And even with that, asked me for my address, right? And I'm like, man, what's he need my house address for? Ends up knocking on the door, hands my wife a package, and our national title newspaper cover. He wrote a really nice note on it, put it in a glass frame to hang up on the wall, and then sent, even 2 more nice cards, pictures from Omaha and stuff, and, wrote nice messages on them and stuff. So I just think the level of care that he has for the players on and off the field, he has your best interest in heart. I can't say, I could go on for days talking about the man. He's one of the best men I've ever met. And I think his resume itself in college baseball with, I don't even know, 30 regional appearances in maybe 35 years, whatever it was, it just speaks enough for itself. He's unbelievable.
I got one more coastal one, Troy. I apologize here.
You keep saying I apologize. I have to apologize.
No.
No, then you say I apologize next. And we just keep going, and that's the whole podcast.
Actually, this is interesting because I think both of you guys had injuries where you didn't play. And I think you and I have talked a little bit about yours and like what you did, like when you couldn't be on the field, how you still felt you got better. How did you handle not being able to be on the field after you I think it was a fracture, broken leg, whatever it was.
Torn ACL, torn meniscus, fractured knee. I had the whole trifecta, but I did not handle it well because at that point I'm like, we eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff, and baseball obviously for me is everything, especially going through the journey that I've had to go through, and it's hard to see your team out there competing. And especially hosting a regional, right? That's every team's goal. Hey, host the regional first and have that home field advantage type thing going through. And to see, obviously we didn't win, so there was times of need. And to have to sit on the side and see your team, need you in that moment possibly, or just another arm, another bat, whatever it could be, not be able to be out there and help and help your teammates even. Those seniors that year that were done, from Seth Lancaster, Kevin Woodall, a lot of guys like that, I'm like, man, I couldn't help, to get us over that hump and get back to Omaha. So it's extremely difficult, but it also taught me ways to be a good teammate and to help in other ways. Where it's like the younger guys that are going to need to step up, you kind of step back, pull them aside. Where it's like the private help, and it's like the mentor them and try to be that key piece. So it taught me a lot about helping other guys, not just on the field but off, which I feel like has transferred into pro ball and helped me here. So, but yeah, it's extremely tough not being able to play and help.
So how did you break your leg?
Oh man.
So somebody did something cool, like you were like jet skiing and all of us tried to do a flip and all of a sudden it just snapped.
No, it's actually horrible.
It's worse?
Yeah, I was in the weight room in, I believe, right after the new year. We just got back from winter break.
Okay.
And I was on a Vertimax machine. So
can you explain to me what that is?
Yeah, imagine this table here, but at the end there's cords that strap up to the middle. Okay. And I wear a belt.
Oh, I know what you're talking about now.
And those cords hook to the belt on the side. So when you jump, the cords pull you down for resistance training. And it was my last rep of my last set. I just remember landing, and I was so focused on landing smooth, landing well. And I just remember waking up on my back, opening my eyes, and seeing one of my best friends, Kyle Skeels, standing above me, like all bright-eyed, like, hey, man, you all right? And I just remember looking down, and I was still strapped in, and my leg was just completely turned in, and I was like, oh, this ain't good, So luckily, he helped me up, unclipped the belt, knowing me, I'm like, okay, you're going to be all right. Just try to walk up the stairs, go hit the bike, walk it off. And I think I got up 3 steps, and I was like, yeah, this isn't good. Not good at all.
I'm a throw up.
Yeah, so wasn't fun, but luckily within 7 months was back on the mound pitching.
Wow.
So
that's a quick recovery. Steroids?
Yeah, a little too quick. If I was on steroid, I'd have been throwing a lot harder, I promise you that.
And you would have been back in 3 months.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, definitely bad injury. Crazy, man.
I'm trying to think of how you even do that. Like I could see an ankle. I get an ankle. But a knee and a lower leg, that's wild.
I know. And it was even tougher, man, because obviously, I would never threw crazy hard, was never a huge prospect. And, that summer you go to Cape Cod, put up a sub-3, you're a key piece, and you're like, man, I'm heading into my draft. Everything's trending in the right direction. All the work that you've put in is going there. And I'm like, man, to have that happen 2 weeks before opening day, I was like, man, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
But like I said, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And it made for a good story, and luckily everything worked out. So
I like it. Well, with our college game day, voices in the back, whatever it is, I want to ask you very specifically about your hometown, Pittsburgh. We actually had another Pittsburgh native on the podcast as well, Patrick Monteverde. He told me a lot about Pittsburgh, but give me some of your favorite things. Before the show, we were talking about, I call it Pamonti's Brothers. You call it what?
Primanti Brothers.
Primanti Brothers. Yes. My grandma, if she's watching this, she'll love it. We had it in Ohio, which we were in Youngstown, which is like right on the border of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
But tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about the food, the culture of Pittsburgh.
Man, the food in Pittsburgh, obviously I'm biased.
Is it Pitts?
I think it's one of the best. Primanti Brothers, you got Fiore's Pizzeria, you got Minio's, you got Campiti's, even everyone calls them gyros. I call them gyros. But Nasso's Gyros, you have so many good restaurants and good types of food that honestly it's a bad thing when I go home because I'm just eating all the bad stuff. But, man, it is so good. And then culture-wise, I mean, everybody rallies around their pro sports. I mean, the Penguins, I'm lucky enough to see whatever it's been, 3-4 Stanley Cups in my life, 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
So it's a winning city. Obviously the Pirates are kind of struggling where they're not holding their end of the bargain on that. But everyone rallies around sports. It's a huge sports town. And then where I grew up in Dormont, really city, blue-collar neighborhood where, everybody's just a hard worker. Even – my grandparents, everybody that I grew up with, coming up, they worked at the Heinz Ketchup Factory, just super blue-collar people. But, yeah, Pittsburgh is one of the best cities, obviously, I've ever been to. Love growing up there, and I feel like the values that are instilled in you as a city boy there have carried me to this point as far as the work ethic, blue-collar, and then even, growing up in a super religious Catholic family, that type of stuff has molded me too. I could go on for days about Pittsburgh and the food and everything else. So.
Well, and that's such a different lifestyle than the way that I grew up because coming from where I'm at in Seattle, so Seattle's like a city, of course, but you go a little farther south, and as I've grown older, I've understood this a little bit more. But I grew up in like an agricultural town. Like there's a lot of farming in Washington, a lot of Washington farmland. A lot of the land is farmland. And so hearing you talk about being in the city and people working in factories and all this kind of stuff, I'm like, that's so odd because as I get older, of course, Amazon's from Seattle. So a lot of people work at Amazon. A lot of people work at Boeing, Microsoft. Like it's all like tech stuff. So that is so interesting to me thinking about people going to, because I only see that stuff in movies. I don't see a lot of people
100%.
going to like an industrial working factory. Like the only thing that I can really think of that comes to mind is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, where the dad puts the caps on the toothpaste. Like that's the only like industrial thing that but in my mind, all I can think about is like where I'm from is my mom grew up on a farm and my grandfather worked at a dairy farm. And all I can think about is like when I think blue collar, I think like farmers. I think on their Friday nights are spent at the rodeo and then going out, this kind of stuff. And I'm like, that is so different than the way that I grew up.
100%. It's like, you got all the steel mills and stuff like that. But,
Steel Mills? Is there a team named after that or something? Oh, no. Never
Steelers.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah,
The Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah. But, it's crazy. And then even growing up, you don't hunt, you don't fish because, everywhere you go, growing up, nobody on our street even had a driveway. It's just street parking, one little lane getting through. So I'm like, man, me and my brother, everybody, we would just ride bikes to a ball field. We'd go play football, baseball, and do whatever we could with a group of friends. So it's like, man, just the city vibe is so different. I spent some time in Spokane, so I've gotten to see that part of the country. And, definitely way more tech and nature vibe. So, big difference.
Penguins, Steelers, Pirates. Of the three, did you have one that really touched your heart more?
Steelers.
Okay.
100%. Yeah, growing up, honestly, I was always a big football guy. And that was, to be honest, the dream from when I was really, really little. I wanted to be an NFL player. And so, obviously, the Steelers growing up with hearing about the Steel Curtain, and then it's like you get guys like Joey Porter, Troy Polamalu, James Harrison, Ryan Clark, all the hard hitters in football. It really made me love the team. But, definitely the Steelers are by far the favorite.
I was going to say because they're really successful for one, but two, there's so many great players from Western Pennsylvania, like 100%. Dating back to Jim Kelly and Dan Marino and Joe Namath and like Darrelle Revis on the defensive side. Like this is kind of in the culture, I think, was football. So what made you go the baseball route?
I actually had a mentor in high school. So my 8th grade year, ended up moving schools, went to a place called Mount Lebanon High School. And I was blessed enough to be able to see and meet Ian Happ, who is a Gold Glove left fielder for Chicago Cubs. And watching him play and everything that he did on the baseball end of things really made me kind of love baseball. I'm like, man, I looked at how good he was, and to this day, obviously being that young, I was like, man, that's the best player I've ever seen. And he kind of, pulled me aside. Summer workouts were starting for football, and he was like, hey, man, you're a left-handed guy. You're a really good pitcher. You made varsity as a freshman. Those things that mattered then. And he was like, I think you could go really far in baseball if you would focus specifically on that sport. And watching him and how good he was, I was like, man, if he can do it, I can do it. One of those confidence things. And I was like, man, I'm going to give it up. So after my freshman year of playing football, strictly baseball from there on out.
Wow.
Yeah, and he kind of steered me away from it. And to be honest, man, probably the best decision I ever made by far.
Did you play any other sports growing up?
Yeah, so, man, when I was young, I did gymnastics, soccer,
tiddlywinks,
wrestling,
curling,
jiu-jitsu, football, basketball. baseball. I played every sport
Wow.
imaginable. So
we've talked about this, of course, before in the locker room and everything like that. So you're big into jiu-jitsu.
mm-hmm.
How did you get into that? Like, what was the big thing? Because for me, my brother-in-law does jiu-jitsu. I live in a wrestling family.
Mm-hmm.
Like, jiu-jitsu is a very important part of like my lifestyle.
100%.
But how did you get into it?
So when I was younger, went into the wrestling side of things and loved wrestling. Did that for a couple of years, and then my dad was a state constable, so he served subpoenas and evictions. And obviously, it's similar to police work, And for him, you're going knocking on someone's door to evict somebody. There's a lot of hand-to-hand combat and things that would happen during that time, and then he would transport prisoners. So there's obviously a lot of hand-to-hand combat. And when my oldest brother, Eddie, was really, really young, he used to do jiu-jitsu full-time, did tournaments. They drive to Ohio and do all these massive tournaments and stuff. So from him doing that kind of made its way down, and he always taught us that, it's a good life skill to have, especially being a city guy. There's obviously a lot of I don't know how to phrase it, but you know what I mean? A lot of confrontation,
tough.
and
there's tough people.
Yes, being able to defend yourself was one of the biggest things, and that kind of worked its way down. And then the wrestling side to jiu-jitsu side, there was a massive difference that I didn't really realize. And for me, wrestling was like there was a leash on you a little bit, and you couldn't do everything that you wanted to do. And then jiu-jitsu felt like they just cut the leash and said, like, go get them. And for me, that was the more fun part. So I had a blast with my brother JJ. Who is like this with me. That's my guy. So we had a lot of fun doing it growing up, and it just kept meshing and turning into something else where we wanted to continue to develop doing it. But yeah, that's pretty much how that one started, and it's one of the more fun things I've done.
What's your favorite move in jiu-jitsu?
I'm going to be honest. Dude, got to be a triangular choke.
Perfect. All right, you ready? Let's do it. I'll give you one free shot. I will give you my back. This will never happen.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to get my legs up on you.
Yeah, that's all right.
That's
you can give me a rear naked.
Choke.
You ready? You ready? Go for it.
There we go.
Here, no, go for it. Seriously, go for it. I'll tap. I'll let you know.
Either one. You can go here.
Yep, there you go.
Pull.
Yep.
You can
what are you doing?
You can
Choke
go
me out.
reverse and just hug.
And
you can do whatever you want to
do.
do.
That was perfect. Right there. Right there. That's the spot.
Mm-hmm.
You got to go right here. Push it in. That's it. Forearm there. Push it in.
And I think that was, and even wrestling, so you went through it. Mm-hmm. You have your certain techniques, you have your certain things that you do. And jiu-jitsu is pretty much like one choke around the neck, right? I feel like wrestling was more standard as far as like, hey, we have this, this, and this, you know what I mean? And then I feel like jiu-jitsu was, man, there's a million ways to do every single thing. Different grips, whether it's monkey hooks or anything that you want to do to apply force and pressure. So I was like, man, it's like, when you feel like you can keep learning. That was probably the most addicting part to it.
Yes, because there's always something different. Yeah, well, I also
100%.
feel like in wrestling, a lot of it is controlling the other person.
Yes.
Where in jiu-jitsu, it's a lot more of applying pressure, and
yes.
It's a little bit more, I'm not going to say hurtful, but it's a little bit more painful in the sense to the other person.
100%. And being 2-3 steps ahead.
Correct, exactly. Like knowing what did you ever do scouting with that if you did any like matches?
No.
Okay, because I was going to say it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to like scout somebody when you don't have video, and you're just like, all right, well, let's see what we do.
Yeah. I mean, luckily, I shouldn't even say luckily. Sadly, I was the youngest, So my other brother is a horse, absolutely massive. My dad at the time was big, so I'm like, everybody else was way bigger. So I'm like, man, I got to learn from these guys. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, I used to get bullied until luckily I started getting bigger and starting to learn how to do more of it. But yeah,
But-
crazy time, man.
I mean, that's what builds you though. Is like, and that's why I like wrestling so much. It will tear you down every single day, not just physically but mentally. You're like, I cannot keep getting hurt. Things hurt everywhere. How do I get better so this doesn't happen?
100%.
Did you ever do anything like that? You
No.
don't seem like much.
No,
You seem like a lover,
no.
not a fighter.
I'm not good at fighting.
Maybe just on like Smash Brothers. Like
I'm
like
not even
Mario.
good at Smash Brothers.
Not
I can
Smash
race.
Brothers.
I am very good at racing,
Yes.
but I am
A
terrible.
little Easter egg for our next
Yeah,
interview.
yeah. Yes.
Little Easter
But
egg.
no, I played baseball, basketball, a little bit of football, but I was not the most physical. I was a cornerback. You know, I'm on the outside.
Speedster.
Yeah,
Speedster.
speed was my game.
Speedster.
In basketball, speed was my game. In baseball, speed was my game. I let everyone else do the tough stuff.
See, I got hurt one time in football. I separated my shoulder in football, and I just was not the same player. I used to be so physical, and I would just go for heads. It was no problem. But I got hurt one time, and I was like protecting it every single time. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Because you're hit
I
so
don't
much
really-
there.
yes, you do. And it's just so, like, even when I wrestled, I was kind of like, I got to protect my shoulder, protect my, do all this kind of stuff. I don't want to get hurt. Where when you play those sports and you do that thing, you're going to get hurt at some point. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It's just you got to be like full bore every time or else you do get hurt.
Yeah, not going full tilt
Yes.
honestly has a higher likelihood of you getting hurt.
Correct.
So,
Yes.
yeah, I'm with you on that.
Austin, thank you. This was awesome. Really
course.
appreciate you making time for us.
Of course, great to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
Of course, I'm really not a fan of Pittsburgh, but I might have to go and visit
Come
just
on,
because
bro.
of you.
Yeah, I'll say you got to get
Pittsburgh's
a
cool.
Capicola and egg sandwich.
At Permonti Brothers.
That'll work.
I didn't say it right again.
No, I didn't even want
Awesome.
to correct you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
You're the man. Appreciate
you guys.
Wish you the best of luck to the end of the season.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
everybody, that's out. That's going to be it for Turn 2 with Scott and Troy. Austin, thank you so much. Check us out next week with our brand new interview. Make sure to tune along. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Maybe.
Yes, and
Maybe.
and if you like what you heard today, please rate and review us as we continue to grow.
Please. That would be great. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Turn 2 fam.